Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Gradulting Workshop Series. If you have student loans and you want to learn how to manage them, you are in the right place. My name is Debbie, and I am the coordinator of services and programs for the Graduate Legal Aid Office. And I realize that some of you are on campus and some of you might be in other parts of the world. So, and a lot of you are just joining in now. So let's just do a quick poll to see where everyone is right now, just for fun. So take a minute to answer the question, where are you? All right, just a couple more seconds and then we'll take a look and see what the results are. All right. I'm going to share the results. So the number one answer, not really a surprise, in or near College Park with 44%. A lot of you are in Maryland, and look, 22% of you are not in Maryland, but you're in the United States. And nobody joined who's out of the country because they're probably sleeping, and hopefully they'll watch this recording later on. So thank you for doing the poll. It's kind of fun for me to see what's going on with everybody. Okay, so you may know that the Gradulting workshops are on Tuesdays at 12:30, and they'll usually be recorded. If you missed our first two workshops, which were on health insurance and life hacks, you can find those recordings on our website on our workshop page. And looking ahead to next week, the question we will answer is, how do I get a Maryland driver's license? So you can register for that workshop. The link will be on our website, and you'll see the announcement in our newsletter as well as in Grad Student Life's newsletter. So in addition to the Gradulting Workshop Series, Grad Legal Aid also provides other services. Everything is free. We have an attorney on staff. His name is Zach Mundy, and he does legal consultations, private consultations, confidential, and generally 30-minute consultations. So if you're having a problem with your landlord, or you got a traffic citation, you don't know what to do, we can help with those issues along with all kinds of other things. We have an advocate on staff. Her name is Tara Johnston. Hi, Tara. Tara helps students who have been charged by the university with a violation of the Code of Conduct or the Code of Academic Integrity. So if you know someone in that situation, please refer them to our office. We don't want anyone to have to navigate that alone. We help people understand their options and give them some support along the way. If you need something notarized, I can help you. I am a notary public, and we are doing office hours for notaries on Wednesdays and Thursdays. So for any of these services, you schedule appointments from our website. Everything is virtual except the notary services. And as long as the weather cooperates, I've been doing that outside. So after today's workshop, I'm going to send you an email with a 6-second survey, really 6 seconds. So please take the time to do that. And we'll also be sending you a recording of this workshop and a copy of the presentation. So let's get started with today's workshop. I am very happy to introduce Professor Sam Handwerger. He is a good friend to Graduate Legal Aid, and to many, many students, because he is not only a full-time lecturer at the Smith School of Business, he is also the advisor for TurpTax. And for those of you who don't know, TurpTax is an amazing resource that I'm going to let Sam talk about a little more, but many students have found them to be very helpful. So in addition to Sam being with the University of Maryland, he's also a graduate from Maryland. He has his master's in science and taxation from the University of Baltimore. He worked in New York City as a senior tax researcher and led the tax planning and preparation departments of the CPA firm, his own firm, Handwerger, Cardina, Funkhauser, and Lerman. And in 1996, he was awarded the Governor's Volunteer of the Year Award in the state of Maryland for financial management advisement to nonprofit organizations. And before he came to Maryland as a full-time lecturer, he held adjunct positions at Hopkins as well as the University of Baltimore Law School. We are so lucky to have Sam and his team with us today. So Sam, please take it away.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. This is not my first time with the graduate program here at Maryland, but it's always a pleasure to deliver the merchandise, so to speak, to all the students who have needs. So we hope today to help you with your planning for your student loans. That's our main topic. Normally I'm speaking about taxation. And I probably, with all humbleness, he said, and humility, I probably could speak to you about how to do your student loan planning. But I figured what better source than to share that information from fellow students at Maryland who have to deal with the same issues that you're dealing with. And so I've brought some volunteers from the TurpTax organization here today. TurpTax, just to let you know a little bit of the details very quickly, we help during tax season and all year round with your tax return, your tax compliance issues, whether you're a domestic student or international student. So look us up on the GLAO website, look us up, Ask Debbie, and look us up on the web. We're going to be there this year again to help you with those needs, and we're happy to do it all for free. There's no, I'm still a volunteer. Help me, help me. That's why I couldn't get out of it from 1996 till today. All right, so with that, let's go right into the heart of the matter, because I'm sure that's what you're interested in. What do I do with these student loans? We're going to start with, we're going to pass the baton around to all the volunteers. We're going to start with Florina, and I'll let you take it away. And I will be standing by watching the chat box if I see any questions that we need to stop for. Otherwise, we'll answer those at the end.
Hi everyone, thank you for coming. Today we're going to present about how you can manage your student loan debt. And so we're going to start with a quick overview of student loan terminology. So first, we just want to define private loans versus federal loans. So federal loans are funded by the federal government, and private loans are funded by private organizations like banks, credit unions, agencies, or universities. That's on the next slide. And so the key difference here is that private loans are made by these private organizations that set their own terms and conditions for the loans, whereas the federal loan terms and conditions are set by the government. And so some of the various types of federal loans are listed here on the slide. So there's direct subsidized loans, which are available to undergrad students with financial need. And for these subsidized ones, the U.S. Department of Education will cover your interest. There's also direct unsubsidized loans, and so these are also available to undergrads, but also graduate students, and you don't need financial need to be demonstrated. but you are responsible for the interest payments. And then there's Direct Plus loans, which are for graduate students and parents. And so here are just a few more terms. So we have fixed or variable interest rates. So some loans have fixed rates. So for the whole borrowing period, you pay the same interest rate. And other loans that have variable rates that fluctuate depending on the market. And so for borrower benefits, these are perks that might come with loans, like interest rate deductions or cash rewards for making on-time payments or fee waivers. So these are just all extra perks that are attached to the main loan. And then there's prepayment penalties. So there aren't any prepayment penalties for federal student loans, but some personal loans have these. So the lender basically requires you to pay a certain amount of interest before you can start paying your actual loan off. So if you pay off the loan before you pay off the minimum interest amount, you'll be charged a penalty. And so for the grace period, that's the time you get before your lender says you have to start making payments. So usually for federal loans, that's 6 months after you graduate. And then finally, deferment versus forbearance. So both of these terms mean that you can postpone your loan payments, but in the case of deferment, you don't accrue any interest to your loan balance. If you're in forbearance, then interest will accrue, so it actually increases the amount you owe over time.
Okay, let me just stop for a second. And on that slide, let me just mention that almost, to my knowledge, almost all the federal loans are the fixed rate. So that's good. And if Lorena mentioned the borrower's benefits, if you sign up for a direct deposit, you can save a fraction of your interest costs with the federal programs. And the last point would be, try not to do forbearance if you can help it, because it means interest continues to mount that you'll eventually have to pay, where deferment freezes the interest. That's the better place to be. Good job. Keep going. Thank you.
And so I'm sure you've all heard of the CARES Act. So it's the 2020 Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act. And it was passed to help deal with the after effects of COVID-19. So we're going to talk about a few changes that the Act made that affect students with college debt. And so firstly, probably the most well-known change is that colleges got the Student Emergency Fund allowance from the CARES Act for grants that they can give to students. For UMD specifically, all these funds have already been used up, so that fund doesn't apply to us anymore. So if you want to request grants from the school still for like COVID-19 related financial effects, then you're going to have to fill out an application for the UMD Student Crisis Fund. And so that doesn't have a deadline for application. You can just fill it out anytime. And so there's also two other ways that the CARES Act helps us. So firstly, there's a 0% interest period until December 31st, 2020. So the interest rate is 0% on several types of federal student loans, and this is something you get automatically. So you can confirm if you're eligible by asking your loan servicer or logging on to studentaid.gov. And the CARES Act also placed loans in administrative forbearance. And so they temporarily suspended monthly payments, again, until December 31st. So you can opt in or out of this, and that's a decision that you can make on your own depending on whether you want interest to accrue in the long run.
Okay, so now I'm going to talk a little bit about long-term planning to actually pay off your loans, because we're definitely going to have to worry about that after December 31st. So there are basically two steps for paying off your loans. It's first, you must evaluate your situation. Do you have public loans, private loans, what type? And second, you need to choose a repayment plan. And for federal, there are 4 options. So on the next slide here, here's a website where you can actually look into whether you have public or private loans, what type of federal loans you might have, and to research the best way you can repay them, as well as protections that you have as a borrower. Another quick way to know about the loans that you have is to chat with the federal student aid information counselors at 1-800-730-8913, or you, like I said before, you could check the National Student Loan Data System online. All right, so I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on the 4 options for your repayment plan. It's slightly more involved, but pretty simple once you memorize your 4 options for federal loans. If you have private loans, you can contact your bank and go over all your repayment options that they can provide. And also with these 4 basic options for federal loans, you can change your payment plan as often as you need to. So first we have standard loans, which is what you'll get by default for federal loans. Typically they're divided into payments over 10 years, and that's how they'll determine your monthly payment. Second, we have extended, which is a lower amount over a longer period of time, 20 to 25 years. But because you are paying over a longer period, the interest rate can be higher overall. Third, we have graduated, which is where the payments will increase gradually over time, which is perfect if you have a job where you're going to start on the lower pay grade and gradually go up in income. This has the same interest rate throughout. You just need to make sure that you're keeping up with your payments and trying to bring down the premium. And then last, we have the income-driven repayment plan, which is the one that usually has the most appeal, especially during times where you're unsure about the stability of your income. This allows a 10 to 15% of your discretionary income to determine your monthly payments, and also, more importantly, provides you protection from default. So even if your income drops to 0, you won't default and end up ruining your credit. On the IDR plan, the income-driven repayment plan, the interest rate from before you were enrolled in this plan will not change and will still accrue and be charged as before. And because you're probably paying a lower premium over a longer period of time, you most likely will end up paying more interest. It's a plan that's in general designed to lower your monthly payments, but it doesn't cover interest or try to get you out of debt faster. So this is a major con when it comes to the IDR plan. And it's advisable to always have a long-term plan in mind that includes both your loans and your interest payments, and of course, raising your income. All right, so.
It also has a, sorry, Alisha, good job. I just want to add that the IDR plan, the last plan, also has a potential, if you still have a balance due 20, 25 years out, doesn't it have a potential of forgiveness at that point? Where, oops, we missed.
Yeah. As long as you stay within the, there's certain instances where you can cancel your right to forgiveness, such as if you get into forbearance or if you consolidate your loan. So you really need to talk with your loan provider about what the options are and what can hurt you in the long run. But in general, yes, you are.
So I think to sum up, what Alisha is saying is if you were to get into the IDR plan, it has the potential, if you're not fully paid up 20, 25 years out, and again, your student loan supervisor will be able to explain what applies to you, which period of time, 20 or 25 years, of being wiped out if you're not fully paid at that time. But as she also points out, you gotta be careful that if you're going to make any changes, first find out how that affects this particular potential of the IDR plan. Okay.
Okay, so on the next slide, we have a quick example of the IDR repayment plan. Let's say you have a student named Tom. He graduated with about $70,000 in loans, and through the standard 10-year payment plan, he pays $753 per month. Now, until recently, this was okay because he had a job that pays $75,000 a year, but recently he lost that job. He was able to get a new one, but it only pays $50,000 a year. So he determines that he won't be able to make this payment. So first he calls his loan provider and requests a recalculation of his monthly costs based on his new income. And because his gross income falls significantly below his total debt, he is able to apply for the income-driven repayment plan. So after they do the calculations, which like I said before, is based off of his discretionary income, which means it's based off his adjusted gross income minus about 150% of the federal poverty guideline amount, and also based off your family size and your state. They calculated that he will pay about $266 per month. That sounds like a lot, but you can usually go online and do an estimate and calculate that. And also when you apply for it, they will tell you how much you're eligible for if you are eligible for the lowered monthly amount. And that example is just like one of the examples of how you can make sure not to default, because even if his income doesn't go up, he won't default on his loans and he won't ruin his credit. So next, we're going to go to the next slide for additional tips. So overall, there's no reason why you should default on your loans. There's always a repayment plan that can work for you, even if you don't have any income. Stay on the income-driven repayment plan. Even if you no longer have enough income to pay your loans, you won't default and your credit won't go down, and you just need to make sure that every year you update your income amount and they can adjust the payments based off of what is right for you. Next, be careful about forbearance. For one thing, it is a slippery slope. Sometimes you can keep going off and not paying the loan, and then your interest is rising and you end up owing more in the end than you had originally. And also, like Professor Handwerger was talking about before, you might be eligible for forgiveness program after 20 to 25 years, but with forbearance, with some of the loans, that can disqualify you. Next, you should try to be your own advocate. Don't just depend on your loan provider to tell you all the information beforehand. They are there to help, but sometimes they don't know what is the best for your particular situation, and it's good to do a little bit of research. Next, you should try to keep all your contact information current with your loan provider. You need to stay in contact with them and review your remaining payments and interest amounts. And then you need to also be careful about refinancing and consolidation. That's when you roll all of your federal loans into one payment, because this can also disqualify you from protections that federal loans provide, such as forgiveness, or it can even disqualify you from the income-driven repayment plan. And then last, this one I'd say is the most important: never pay anybody for loan help. There's a lot of free resources out there that you can take advantage of, including your school, your financial aid center at your school. Even after you graduate, you can come to your school and ask them for tips or ask them to direct you to the right people. All right, and the next slide. The next slide, I'm just going to give 2 final tips. You should always try to pay extra on your principal amount whenever possible. This will ultimately save you a lot of money, because the faster you reduce your premium, the less interest you have to pay over the life of the loan. In other words, because your interest amount is calculated based off the principal, the lower your principal, the lower your interest. You can check online for payment calculators to see how your extra payments can affect your overall loan interest amount. And second, it's always a good idea to pay automatically if that's possible for you. Like was said before, there are many loan lenders, federal and private, who will give you a discount if you agree to set up payments automatically every month. And the federal direct loan discount currently is about 0.25%, which can add up over the years. Again, if you have a private loan of any kind, don't be afraid to check with your bank or whoever your lender is, and they can potentially offer you some kind of discount in exchange for automatic payments. All right, and our next slide, I'm just going to tell you some sources of information I use for this presentation, and ones that I believe are extremely valuable to every student borrower. That is the National Student Loan Data System. This is the website where you can check on your grants and your loans. You can see what kind you have and the conditions that you agree to. Next is the Student Borrower Protection Center. This has information on state-specific loan resources, how to deal with loans during COVID, and how students can be defended against predatory loan practices. Next, I just want to show an example of a podcast, which there are a lot of podcasts that are talking about student loan payments. The one I used for this presentation that helped me out a lot and was fun to listen to was called the NPR Life Kit podcast, Braving Your Student Loan Payments. It's available for free everywhere. There's a lot of cool online sources of information. This one was only about 28 minutes. Finally, it's important to determine what kind of payment plan is right for your particular situation. And this should take into account both monthly payments on the principal and the interest. And one way to go about that, which is also free on the internet, is to look up a student loan income-based repayment calculator. You can find one on many websites such as studentloanhero.com. And there are many other websites that offer free resources that include calculators for repayment and detailed information on loan options, payment plans, and interest refinancing calculators, as well as, super importantly, forgiveness programs. All right, and I'm going to pass the torch to Yidan.
Now, a question you might be wondering is, what if I will be having trouble making the repayment? Just as Alisha said, don't default on your loans. The first day after you miss the student loan payment, your loan becomes past due or delinquent. If you are delinquent on your student loan payment for 90 days or more, your loan servicer will report the delinquency to the 3 major national credit bureaus. If you continue to be delinquent, your loan can risk going into default. Don't ignore your student loan payments. Defaulting on your loan can have serious consequences, including you can no longer receive deferment or forbearance, and you lose eligibility for other benefits, such as the ability to choose a repayment plan and choose eligibility for additional federal student aid. The default is reported to the credit bureaus, damaging your credit rating and affecting your ability to buy a car, a house, or to get a credit card. So also your wages may be garnished. Therefore, if you cannot afford the payment, always contact your loan servicer immediately. They can help you understand the options you may have and help you choose the correct option. And there are 4 main options you might have. The first one is you can switch your repayment plans to lower the monthly payment, and you can do it as often as you need. Second, you can consider an income-driven repayment plan. And you can also change payment due date. And the last one is get a deferment or forbearance. We will focus on the second one and the first one. If you will be having trouble making repayments due to circumstances that may continue for an extended period, or you are unsure when you'll be able to afford the payment, you can, a better option you may consider is to choose the income-driven repayment plan. We can compare the advantages and some drawbacks of this plan on the next slide. There are some advantages, such as the monthly payment will be more manageable compared to other repayment plans. And if your income is low enough, you will have 0 monthly payment. These plans also qualify for forgiveness, both through the income-driven repayment plans and public service loan forgiveness program. That means if you cannot repay your loan in full after 20 or 25 years, this plan can forgive the remaining of your loan. And it can also count towards to your requirements of the public service loan forgiveness program. Though there are some disadvantages, such as you may have more interest in the long run to repay, and the amount forgiven under these plans may be taxable. It's still a good option you can consider. Yeah, and there is another option, the deferment or forbearance, but you need to consider 2 points before you choose this. The first one, in most cases, the period during the forbearance, the interest will accrue. That means you have more to pay over the life of your loan. And during the period of deferment and forbearance, you need to start making progress towards forgiveness program, because that likely will not count towards the requirements of those forgiveness program. Therefore, you should explore another repayment plan before you consider this option. And I saw in the chat box, some students are interested in the forgiveness programs. So I mainly introduced the public service loan forgiveness program. It applies to the direct loan. If you will be working in a government or nonprofit organization full-time, this program will forgive the remaining balance after you have made 120 qualified monthly payments. So if you think you are eligible for this program, you can look at the requirements and to see if you are eligible. And the next forgiveness program is a teacher loan forgiveness program. If you be working in a low-income elementary school, secondary school, or educational service agency, you can put attention to this program and to see if you are eligible for this. And the next is in the discharge in bankruptcy. In some cases, you can have your federal student loan discharged after declaring bankruptcy. You must declare Chapter 7 or Chapter 13 bankruptcy and demonstrate that the repayment would impose undue hardship on you and your dependents. This must be decided in an adversary proceeding in bankruptcy court. And after the court's determination, you can have your loan, student loan, fully discharged or partial discharged, or have a lower interest rate. Now we are going to look at the consolidation and the refinancing.
Thank you. So the direct consolidation loan is a consolidation of all your federal student loans from the Department of Education into a single loan. You are only able to consolidate with a direct consolidation loan if you have multiple federal student loans. So federal student loans, like Florina mentioned earlier, consist of direct subsidized, unsubsidized loans, and plus loans. So by consolidating your federal loans, a pro is that you still retain federal loan protections, such as the flexibility to change payment plans to meet your needs and access to income-driven repayment plans. And taking out a federal debt consolidation loan won't change the overall interest rate on your federal student loans. It will be a weighted average of your federal loans you are consolidating. And if you choose to increase your repayment time, that will also increase your total repayment costs, because you will have to pay more interest in the long run. And if you want to apply for a direct consolidation loan, you can do so after logging into your federal student aid account with that link. And if you had made payments toward a public service loan forgiveness plan, like Yidan mentioned earlier, consolidating your loans into a federal debt consolidation loan will restart the clock on qualifying. So that's just something to consider. And I'm going to move on to refinancing. So the difference between refinancing and consolidating is that the debt consolidation, the direct consolidation loan is only for federal loans, but refinancing, you are able to refinance and consolidate your private and federal loans, although it may not be advisable. So refinancing is when you consolidate your loans to get a ideally lower interest rate and merge your loan payments into one, and it is only available via private lenders such as local banks, credit unions, and online lenders. So in order to refinance, the creditor will have to determine if you are qualified to refinance at a lower rate. And each lender may evaluate a variety of factors such as your credit score, annual income, savings, and whether or not you have a college degree or if you are currently enrolled in college. So if you want to refinance and aren't able to qualify due to any of those factors, you could consider applying with a creditworthy cosigner to improve your chances of getting approved to refinance at a lower rate. But you should be very careful when considering whether or not to refinance. If you refinance your federal student loans with a private lender, you will not be able to receive the benefits from federal student loan protections. Federal student loan protections you could lose access to are the ability to change your repayment plan at any time, deferment and forbearance periods, and the option to enroll in an income-driven repayment plan. So,
yeah, that's very good. Let's hold on for that thought a minute, Allison. That's a really important point. We as a group, our audience, to let you know, as a group, when we were meeting on this presentation, we were talking about at this particular time in the history of student loans in the United States, it would be foolish, we believe, so it's our opinion, but we believe it would be foolish to move out of federal loans into private loans through any, even if they're promising lower interest rates, even if they're promising lower monthly payments. We don't know who's going to win the election, but we do know changes are afoot politically in how student loans will be handled next year. So if you move out of a federal program, and all of the political agendas show favoritism to the federal loan program. So if you move out of a federal loan today, you risk, well, you not risk, you will give up the ability to take advantage of whatever new agenda occurs in Congress next year regarding federal student loans. Some of them look very, very favorable, but lots of forgiveness, which could pass Congress, and you give that up when you're in a private group. Sorry to be long-winded, Allison, on that, but it's such right now it just seems like suicide, so to speak. That's how accountants talk, financial suicide, to move out of the federal program with your loans. So your best bet would be to try to hang on. If you're in any dire straits, see your student loan servicer, try to hang on with the federal loans until you see what happens next year. Go ahead, sorry.
No, thank you. And I just wanted to add, like, if you only had private loans, then refinancing would make more sense. But if you have any federal loans, like Professor Handwerger said, just don't even try. So the next thing I want to address is not exactly, it's kind of related to student loans, but it's like, if you still wanted to save money while you're paying off your student loans or paying off credit card debt, just some like tips to get you started on this like journey. So one thing that's good to know is your income to debt ratio, just to have like a high level overview of it all. So for example, if you make $20,000 a year, but you have like $10,000 in debt, then you understand like, oh, why make more? Eventually I'll be able to pay this off faster. So knowledge and awareness of your financial situation will lead to better financial decisions in the long run. So my second tip is to figure out where your money is going. And I personally have used like money tracking apps like Money Manager or Mint to track your income and expenditures, or you could use an Excel sheet. And once you see where your money is going, where your expenses are, My third tip would be to try and live below your means the best you can. So find out where you can cut down excess spending in order to allocate more money towards saving and paying off debt. The fourth tip is kind of difficult to achieve sometimes, but it's to increase your income to pay off your debt faster. So if your income is 30K a year, but you have 70K in like debt, then obviously it may take a very long time for you to eventually repay off your debt. So focus on increasing your income the best you can to pay off your debt faster and hopefully accumulate some savings. My best advice is just to invest in yourself and invest in learning a new skill or getting a certification, and that'll hopefully increase your earning ability. And I have some, like I said, some savings apps like Mint, Money Manager, or Digit. And then the last tip is to have financial goals and to have a goal of what amount you could feasibly save, but while prioritizing paying off your debt. And then once you have a set number of what savings you want to transfer into your savings account, set up automatic transfers from your checking to your savings account, just so you could have a small safety fund just in case something happens. Just because you're paying off debt doesn't mean you should give up on trying to have a little like rainy day fund. So like I said earlier, saving is good, but it's much better to prioritize paying off your debt, as interest will cost you more money in the long run. And the next slide are just some useful financial apps that you could look into, but I just wanted to address really quickly credit card debt. If you have a lot of credit card debt, you could possibly refinance it or consolidate it in order to pay it off eventually with one payment. And there are usually two recommended methods to paying off credit card debt, which is like the avalanche method. The avalanche method is to focus on paying your credit card debt with the one that has the highest interest rate. So that would save you more money if you pay off your debt that has the highest interest rate, and then you could focus on the lower interest rate cards that you have that have debt. And the debt snowball method is just like kind of like a mental, it's more of like a mental way of going about debt repayment, and that is paying the lowest balance first. And once you get that feeling of accomplishment of actually paying off one of your debts that you owe, then you could go to the next biggest balance. And eventually, hopefully your financial prowess will increase by the time you have your biggest debt, and you could work on that. But that's all from me. Questions? Or maybe we can address some other points we haven't yet.
Okay, very good, group. If anyone wants to unmute their mic and ask questions or put it in the chat box, we'll watch for that. I made some notes while we're going along, and I just wanted to make mention of these, that there's when you work with your student loan servicer, they are actually, from the research we've done, they are actually pretty good at what they do. They have a good knowledge base, and they can be very helpful for any problems that you incur. But you have to be careful and advocate for yourself, which means you have to balance between lowering your monthly payment versus the interest cost that may have to you over the lifetime of the loan. So they may show you a way to reduce your monthly payment, which sounds very nice, but at the same time, your interest over the entire period of paying back the loan might be significantly higher. So you have to ask that question, and there are apps which you can even put your information into, which has been mentioned today, where you can see how much interest you'll pay over the life of the loan at higher interest rates, lower interest rates, and at different types of payment plans. So I just want to caution you from my own personal experience of having graduated Maryland and gone out to work in the real world, what it's like. And along those lines, I just want to mention credit cards for a second. When I first, a little story here, when I first graduated Maryland many years ago, I found that the credit card was too easy to spend money. It was just, it's like, you don't even think about it. And after a while, I started building up some significant credit card debt. And because I had graduated Maryland's business school, I knew that this wasn't a good idea. Unlike the federal government can print money, they don't have to worry about their deficits and debt. I had to worry about it. So at one point in time in my life, I spent about 2 or 3 years where I used no credit cards whatsoever. It's not so easy, but debit cards do substitute that because it's like writing a check. The money comes directly out of your bank account and you watch it get paid right away. And it's a way that I found tempered the psychology and the behavior of spending perhaps too easily, too quickly, and budgeting better, sort of forcing a personal budget. So a recommendation might be to watch the credit card spending and don't let that debt get too high. If it does get too high, and you're seeing it amount to more than maybe $20,000 or $30,000 in credit card debt, you probably do need to see either a CPA or somebody in the banking world who understands what you can do, or a lawyer even, potential bankruptcy for that. There are ways to work with credit card companies without having to declare bankruptcy, where you make a consolidation of the credit cards, and that's not a bad thing. So we said before not to pay for consolidation or advice for handling student loans, but to pay for advice of handling credit card debt may not be bad. Just clearly research who you're going to talk to before you go ahead. Also, there is, this is right up my alley. Here we go, right up my sweet spot. Student loan interest is, for most of you, going to be tax deductible. So if you're that's the good thing. That lowers the actual interest rate cost on that interest. And so don't forget to take a look when you go to get your tax returns prepared after you're graduating and you're starting to pay that down. It's clearly in the tax code as a tax deduction. And also, when you go to work, this is general advice, but it also applies to student loans. When you go to work for an employer, make sure you sit down with the human resource department to go over all the options that they have for benefit plans of employees. Some of those benefit plans are for retirement, which may seem like a long way away, but there's free money that the employer may be giving if you participate in those plans, and you want to make sure you don't give that free money away. Because of the student loan crisis that exists in our country today, and it is a crisis, there's a huge amount of student debt out there. There are government programs, tax-motivated programs, federal government-motivated programs that are given to employers to help employees pay off their student debt. There again is a source, if your employer has one of these programs, where you can actually get the employer to participate in helping you pay that down. So check with HR, the Human Resource Department, when you first go to work. Don't ask that as the first question when you're on the interview. I can see it now. You're on the interview. Do you have any questions for us before we think about offering you the job? Well, what kind of benefits programs do you have? No, that's not the right first question. First, get the job, then sit down with the HR department and see what they have. But make sure you do that because you don't want to give free money away that they might have. And I think that was the comments I had. So now we're open up for questions from everybody.
Hello, I did have one question. So my name is Bala Shomade and I am a graduate student at the Maryland Smith Business School. And I just kind of wanted to inquire regarding the public. First of all, I wanted to thank everyone who presented. There's very valuable information and a lot of good tools to utilize from this presentation. Secondly, I just wanted to see if we can do a little deeper dive on the public service loan forgiveness program. I've been doing like a little research on it and have been hearing, numerous like publications or articles about how they only give about 1%, like only 1% of applicants actually are able to, benefit from this program. So I guess my question would be, what advice do you have regarding ensuring that you apply successfully and then also successfully get the remainder of your loans forgiven for those programs or for that program?
Okay, Yidan, do you have any idea on that? That sounds like a very deep question for us at the moment. And what I would suggest is if you could, through Debbie, get me your information, your email address. I'm also a CPA, and I have a client who specializes in this area. So I'll probably be able to answer your question directly that way better. They're a teacher themselves and also a public servant who's gone through the program. But Yidan, do you have any idea about the application process?
Actually, during my research, I think after the application, you may they may determine your eligibility and to process your application. But for more information, we can research more and get back to you with more detail.
Yes. So yeah, please have Debbie give you my information and contact me. I'm also at the Smith School, as you know, so I'll be happy to work with you specifically on that. And like I said, I do have a client who probably can answer that question off the top of their head.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. We have any other questions? Anybody? I would like to, while you're thinking of any questions you might want to put in the chat box or open your mic for, I just want to mention that there's, in case you hear of cases, it won't be here at the University of Maryland, but in case you hear of cases where people are suing their schools and getting loan forgiveness by suing the schools for false information from the school, it applies only to private colleges, and not that Maryland's ever even been guilty of this. But if a private college promises, oh, our degree will qualify you for this, or you will get these many job offers, or you will get this much salary in the first 5 years of your working life after graduating from our school, and you find that that information turns out to be pie in the sky, as we say, and it doesn't, and you never even get close to the promises that they make upon graduation, there is a program where if you sue the school for that false advertisement, your loan does get forgiven. Even if it's a private loan, you can get forgiveness on that. So that's what you may be hearing about in the news. It's been going on since the Obama administration, when the government first enacted this area. I just want to mention that. Okay. And let's see, let me just see what we have in the chat box here. Okay, yes, very good. That's great. Thanks, Debbie. I noted, I don't think we have any other questions right now. But let's open it up just in case.
Well, you guys did such a great job of covering everything that I think you've already answered everyone's questions. But I understand that you may think of something later. So I put our email address in the chat, so you can submit your questions to us, and I will forward them over to Sam and his team, and they will help you whenever possible. So gosh, I really learned a lot today, and I wish I had this information when I was paying off my student loans. In a few years, I will have kids who are paying off their student loans, and I will require that they watch this recording. So this was a great public service to anybody who has a student loan. So thank you, Professor Handwerger and Allison and Yidan and Alisha and Sabrina. You guys were terrific. So I appreciate the time that you all took to put together this really excellent presentation. So remember that next week is the Maryland Driver's License Workshop. I hope to see you there, and don't ever hesitate to reach out to GLAO if you have a concern or a question and you're not sure what to do. So
Hey,
take care,
Debbie.
everybody. Have a great week.
Before we go, Debbie, if I could tell a quick story about driver's license.
Yeah.
Being in the world of public accounting, you meet a lot of fun people. So one Friday afternoon, I called up a client to make an appointment for Monday. He says, give me a congratulations. I said, what's the congratulations for? He says, my son, he's 16. He just passed his driver's license test. So I said, oh, congratulations. That was very nice. I'll see you Monday at 12 o'clock. Okay, fine. Monday morning, I decided to call before leaving because it's a long trip to get to his office, just to make sure we're still on. I called, and the secretary answered, and I said, "Is Henry there?" "Henry's not here." I said, "Well, I'm supposed to meet him in about an hour and a half." "Well, he won't be coming in today. His son," nobody was hurt, nothing. Son had an accident. So be careful with those driver's license.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. Well, good to see you all, and thanks again. Take care.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Debbie, for having us very, very much. Thank you.
My pleasure, as always.
All right.